Very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Respected Justice Santosh Hegde, former judge of the Supreme Court, the present Lokayukta of Karnataka and honorable member of the Jan Lokpal Bill Drafting Committee, Advocate A.N.S. Nadkarni, the Life Trustee of International Center Goa and former Advocate General of Goa, Mr. Dastaraj Salgaonkar, the Life Trustee of International Center Goa, our Director Mrs. Nandini Sahai, and the audience present today. May I request our Director Ms. Nandini Sahai to kindly escort Justice Hegde and our Life Trustees to the dais. Thank you. May I request our Director, Mrs. Sahai, to make the introductory remarks.
Very good evening to all of you and a warm welcome for this lecture on role of Lokayukta in good governance. It is my proud privilege to welcome Justice N. Santosh Hegde, a leading personality and a person who is well on his way to becoming a role model for the younger generation. The intrinsic values he holds dear in his life and his diligent fight against corruption makes him a person who is worthy of emulation. Justice Hegde is the former judge of the Supreme Court, the former Solicitor General of India, the present Lokayukta of Karnataka, and honorary member of the Jan Lokpal Bill Drafting Committee. He completed his law degree from University of Bangalore and has been a sportsman throughout his school and university career, which probably explains the deep sense of discipline that has been instilled into his personality and is very evident even today. Justice Hegde also represented the state of Mysore and University of Mysore in hockey. As the Lokayukta of Karnataka, he exposed major irregularities in mines in Bellary, including those owned by Obulapuram Mining Company and by the Retd brothers, who are ministers in the government of Karnataka. He has expressed concern about illegal mining taking place in the state of Karnataka, which have deep repercussions for ecology and to the exchequer of the state. We are very grateful to Justice Hegde for agreeing to deliver the inaugural lecture in our series of 12 lectures on good governance, which we plan to do one a month. May I also add here that even though we were sponsoring his trip, Justice Hegde has come here bearing all the expenses himself because of his commitment to the cause. May I request you all to welcome Justice Hegde with a huge round of standing ovation.
Thank you, ma'am. May I now request our Life Trustee and the former Advocate General of Goa, Advocate A.N.S. Nadkarni, to make the opening remarks to this lecture.
My Lord, Mr. Justice Hegde, Mr. Dastaraj Salgaonkar, Life Trustee, Ms. Nandini Sahai, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the International Center and on my personal behalf, sir, to you I extend a hearty welcome. Your fight against corruption, your fight for principled discharge of your duties have been known since the time you were a lawyer. Your discharge of duties during the time as a Solicitor General and thereafter as a judge of the apex court of this country. Corruption today, I'm glad that Anna Hazare took up this movement and it gained momentum across the country. There are many facets of corruption. I'm aware that you all are eager to hear Justice Hegde, so I won't take much time. But there are few incidences of corruption which I must mention to you. In MC Mehta's case, a bench headed by Justice Sabarwal said that environmental clearance is a must for all industrial undertakings and mining operations. There were about 900 and odd mines in the country and several other industrial undertakings which had not taken the environmental clearance. He said if you don't take it by a particular day, then all these mines and all the industrial undertakings would be closed down. The result was overnight environmental clearances were issued by the then Environment Minister. He had virtually opened a shop. And as Prime Minister recently said, that this Ministry of Environment and Forest had become a den of corruption. So more controls breed more corruption in this country. Today you have a situation that if a middle class person applies to any planning authority or a municipal council for permission, unless there is palm greasing, no permissions come forth. I was just talking to Justice Hegde that in Karnataka Lokayukta there is an excellent provision, which is what he told me. He said if a person applies for permission and that permission is not granted for extraneous reasons, then the person can approach the Lokayukta, and the Lokayukta not only has certain other powers but also remedial remedies where he can direct issuing of certain permissions. Ladies and gentlemen, it's high time that this fight against corruption is taken to its logical conclusion. I am aware that it cannot be completely eliminated, but if we are able to curb it, I think that will be a great service we'll be doing to our Mother India. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a series of lectures organized by the International Center throughout the year. Every month we are going to have various speakers. We have Justice Verma coming in, we have Arvind Kejriwal coming in, and so many illustrious persons will be addressing this. I hope it becomes a grand success and we are able to contribute our bit towards the fight against the corruption. Thank you so much.
May I now request Justice Hegde to deliver the lecture on role of Lokayukta in good governance.
Very good evening to you all. Dignitaries in the dais and the audience. I deem it an honor to be here in front of you today to inaugurate the series of lectures that's being organized by India International Center, Goa. I always liked visiting Goa. You won't believe it, I first came to Goa in 1952 when it was still under the Portuguese regime. It was a great experience coming from Madgaon to Panjim in a bus, spending the whole day getting back and getting into the ship and going to Bombay. Goa has changed a lot, and I don't mind that change. Still it keeps attracting me to come to Goa as and when I get an opportunity. I have a niece here staying, and she compels me and my wife to come here at least twice a year, and we enjoy it. So is the day today, though it's been a bit too busy for me for the last 2 days. First, the meeting of the Jan Lokpal committee, where I had to seek permission to quit the committee and go. But it was decided none of us will quit the committee, we'll continue to be there. And we'll be writing to the Prime Minister and the Chief Justice of India to please appoint a high-level committee which should look into the allegations that have been made against one or the other in the Jan Lokpal committee. Therefore, I do not know whether allegations will still continue to come or not, but be that as it may, so far as our contribution to the discussion is concerned, it will go under any circumstances, go forward under any circumstances. Topic of the day is very, very relevant. There can't be any good governance unless honesty is there in administration. I remember reading in the Constituent Assembly debates that when the question was what type of a political governance that we should have, the debate was so enthralling, so absorbing. It expressed the feelings of people of India. Then the representatives in the Constituent Assembly, what hopes they had for this country, what expectations they had for this country. And the speech was so emotional. Many speakers who spoke said, we Indians have never been truly independent. We were either ruled by the foreigners, or before that we were ruled by Rajas and Maharajas. That word, independent, never really applied to us. Therefore, now that we are going to get true independence, let us have a system by which we can govern ourselves. There are very many political systems available in this country at that point of time. There was monarchy, there was dictatorship, there were governments which were committed to certain isms. So was democracy. Our forefathers, who were members of the Constituent Assembly, chose to have democracy as a system of governance, what we call Rajniti. Only because of the fact they wanted to have that pride that we will be governing ourselves. Democracy was popularly known then as government of the people, by the people, for the people. I deliberately used the word then with a reason about which I will be speaking to you shortly. As the years went by, since at that point of time we were 40 crores population, all 40 crores couldn't sit in the elected body. Therefore, we had to send our representatives. So the Representation of People's Act was enacted, and people were chosen, people of the choice of the people were sent to the parliament, the various assemblies, municipalities, corporations, and etc. But behind them was the feeling that they are our representatives. They will work for us. They will look after our interest. That was the feeling they had. And also the elected people did live up to that people's mandate of want. Maybe the first 2-3 decades, the system worked well. We could proudly say our representatives have done well. There was discussions in the parliament, in assemblies, on issues that concerned the people. But as the time passed, there came a change with the old people who were in the earlier Constituent Assembly and in the fight for freedom disappeared. And the new set of people who became leaders and started representing us in the parliament, slowly there was a degeneration. Degeneration in values, degeneration in parliamentary system, degeneration in the society itself. A lot of scams came out. Nobody was interested in really inquiring into it. And people slowly started feeling that we are being let down by our representatives. But very unfortunately, by then, the political system had changed so much. In the next elections, we couldn't do much to keep those people away from being our representatives. This is the sad state of affairs. I'll give one example of what happened in the Constituent Assembly and how the difference of opinion was solved. After we chose democracy as a system of governance, the next question that came for consideration was, who should have the right to vote? There was no dispute at all. Every person over a certain age must be a voter in this country. Then came the next question. Who will be the candidate? Should he have any educational qualification? None other than Dr. Ambedkar stood up and moved an amendment stating that right to vote in a democracy is fundamental. Right to contest is not. We should fix some educational qualification so that the person who represents us in the assembly, in the parliament and other elected bodies should know what exactly he is there for. What are his duties and responsibilities? He should be able to understand what the proceedings are. Therefore, in that view in mind, he suggested that some minimum qualification should be fixed. Almost all members of the Constituent Assembly seem to agree for that suggestion. One person stands up and he says, "Sir, we have chosen democracy as the political system applicable to us, which means we are going to have a government of the people, by the people, for the people. It's my government. I have a right to represent my people, but you are going to keep me out on the ground that I have no educational qualification." He said, we are 40 crores people in India at that point of time, and there are only 20% of the population who are literates. Would you want this democracy to be a 20